Hello, you guys. Welcome to Friday, Celebration Friday. Hope we are all fantastic and amazing and bringing on home at the end of the week in a really fun, fabulous, and amazing way. Of course you are, because you are fabulous and amazing. I don't know even why it was never in any doubt. So welcome to Friday. I would love to hear what you're celebrating, what's worked really well for you this week, what you're just loving the shit out of. I'm really grateful for some warm weather. I've got to tell you, it is spring, finally, here in the land of Australia, and it's been a really beautiful week, except for today, where it is cold and it is windy, and I'm about to head out and do the mum thing, hey Gail, and go watch my kid play softball in the inter-school softball stuff. So he's so excited. He's taken his baseball gear. He's a baseballer, taken his baseball gear to school, and he's just beyond excited to go and play sport all day. So what I wanted to chat with you about, I saw the LIBRA ad. Have you guys seen it? It's really interesting. It's all about periods, menstruation, obviously, and it's depicted, I think, for the first time ever in Australian history, I believe, that there's been red liquid actually placed on a pad, and there's actually some blood shown on underwear and things like that. And I've kind of gone, oh, this is a bit interesting. I'm the mother of two daughters. I'm obviously a woman, maybe not obviously, but I'm a lady. And it's kind of really interesting. I think that there's, I found it interesting. So I showed my 18-year-old daughter last night. I said, oh, hey, have a look at this. Like, what do you think? And she's like, oh, is this actually being shown? Like, is this an ad? And I said, yeah. She's like, oh, I think it's a little bit too much. I've gone, oh, okay. I said, well, what did you like about it? And she was talking about the guy walking in to buy the feminine hygiene stuff, like pads or tampons or whatever from a store. And she thought it was like, you know, what she actually said. She says, you're never going to be in class saying, hey, can I have a pad? And then hand it over. And so I've kind of gone, well, you know, it's interesting, right? She said, well, because, you know, it just doesn't get talked about. Like, you talk about it between, like, maybe in a group or whatever, but certainly not in front of a class. Yeah, so, well, it's interesting how there's a whole lot of stigma around bodily functions and things like that. And I've just kind of gone, this is actually, you know, me with my my business hat on after I've had the mother hat. I was curious to hear her take on it. There's no way known to man I would ever say when I was at school, hey, and I don't even I don't think I'd even say it around a dinner table if we had friends. I'd go, hey, have you got a tampon I can borrow or use? You know, it's just not the kind of thing that you really talk about, right? Kristen, I'm a mother of three girls, 13, 17, 19, and I understand. Yeah. You know, but there is so much that there is, it's just really interesting. So what it kind of, and I was reading some of the comments underneath, and there was firing back, like going, oh my God, this is just too much. And a man commented underneath one of the videos or the articles that I looked at. He's just gone like, we all, I think he said the word shit or we all poo or like whatever, and they don't go showing pictures of that on television to advertise toilet paper. And it's like, well, you know, maybe that's a fair call. But what it showed me, there was a whole lot of support as well. And it was a really great example, putting business hat on, of polarization and calling something out. And I think, like, if you're looking at it through a marketing lens, and I know that there's undercurrents of things that go on. Hey, Jess, there's undercurrents of things that go on in all of our industries that get kind of like brushed under the carpet or swept underneath or whatever. And I think it's really important to bring these things to the light. And the thing that we've got to realize, and so, like, I think using this LIBRA ad as a really great case study and it was a really great example, there were things that I took out of that ad that I thought were really freaking excellent, right? I mean, what did they have? They had the school kids, they had the young girls, they had a party, they had sex, they had someone, not the young girls at the party being 15, but they depicted a sex scene without it being like really explicit. They had swimming, they had girls crying, so they showed this typical level of empowerment that tends to come along with, feminine hygiene product ads or shampoo ads and, things like that, like ways of keeping ourselves clean, so to speak, or whatever we look at. But it's kind of interesting, I think, that they showed a different perspective, and they've copped a lot of flack for it. They've copped a lot of support for it as well. But going through that ad, like when I was looking at it, it's like, yep, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. Oh, that's a little bit too, a bit too much pushing the boundaries for me. But when I take that ad out and I look at other people that I follow or have followed, or look at other marketing campaigns that I've kind of been interested in or thought were really good, most of the time I'm not agreeing with every single point that's being said or being shared. I might not like the outfit, for example, every time that someone wears when they're marketing their stuff. Maybe I don't always like the language that gets used or whatever. I'm, for those of you that don't know me, hi, my name's Nicola. I'm quite a prude. So a self-confessed prude. And there's different things that sometimes get put up and I'm just like, oh, that's a little much for me. I get it. But, okay, I understand. I can look at it a bit more analytically. And I think what's really cool about this, when we're using this polarization or calling the issues to the forefront in our marketing, it helps people to, number one, hear the things that they need to hear. But we've got to remember that we're not always going to agree with everything that someone puts up, right? We're not always going to agree with every single point that they make. But what we're looking at doing is building up enough, we'll call it trust points, right? We'll look at building up enough trust points that people can kind of go, yeah, you know what, that's great, that's great, that's great. Yeah, I'm not quite sure about that, but you know what, that's great, that's great, that's great, that's great. I know some people, they might not like the fact that I swear, or that I say queen of the motherfucking internet, or whatever, or I declared myself the queen of the internet, which I totally taking a piss, right? But aside from that, I know that will put some people off, and some people can't look beyond that, and that's okay. They're probably not going to like being in my stuff. If there's things when you're actually showing up, when you're sharing your opinions, when you're voicing your opinions, when you're bringing this stuff out, it will automatically polarize people, either away from you or it will magnetize them to you. And the LIBRA ad, I thought, was a really great way of showing some really kind of clever, actually, I think, marketing strategy, in the sense that people are really talking about it. People are talking about the ad. They're either liking it or they're not liking it. It's like the Nike ad with the oh gosh, it was maybe 6 months ago now, the guy with the big hair, and he was calling out something. I can't remember what the issue was now, but it was making a big claim, and Nike copped a lot of flack for that, as well as a lot of love, support, and attention. So how can we learn? How can you learn? If you haven't seen the ad, go and have a look at it. I think it's for me, it's quite tastefully done. I didn't like the end bit. I don't think anybody, personally, I don't think anybody needs to see blood on a pad. I don't think that's just me. It's I wouldn't want to see poo on a piece of toilet paper skid marks or anything that's just, I don't know, that's my opinion. You might have a completely different opinion. It doesn't matter. That's why the world is beautiful, and that you can have your opinion and I can have mine, and we all can coexist beautifully and peacefully and lovingly. But how can you learn from this ad? What can you take away from it? Yeah, there's probably some shock and awe strategies used in there to get people to catch people's attention and things like that. And that is a strategy, but I think there's a bigger underlying message underneath there, which is around addressing the stigma around that. So how can you call that out in your industry? How can you throw some rocks? I'm a massive advocate for you being you. You guys know this, right? I want you to show up. I want you to be you. I want you to trust in what needs to be said. I really believe wholeheartedly that you need to do things. Actually, I think there's no other way, but you need to do things that are in alignment. If you really want to reach the heights that you want to reach, if you really want to build the business that is limitless, then you've really got to be you. And I think, yes, you can go down the ones and zeros strategy side, and you can go and buy the big complex marketing funnels and go to all that shit, but you don't need to do that. And this is where I think like the things that I get really opinionated about and pissed off about are people that say that is the only way, because it's actually not. Right? So that you have to post on social media 25 hours a day, or 25 times a day, 25 hours a day, that you've got to go and direct message people and build those connections, and that is the way, and just what has to be done. Like I disagree with all of that. So how can you throw rocks at your industry and what's being said as being the norm or the thing? Then I want you to take a stand. Like, what are you actually taking a stand for? One of the big things that I'll say to my clients are like, they might ask me an opinion, or they'll say, oh, look, this is what's going on. What do you think? And I'm like, well, before I answer what I think, like, what do you think? I think that you don't, it's that really annoying, really freaking annoying coaching phrase, which is like, you've got all the answers within, which you do. But sometimes we need help pulling them out, right? So that might be going through a journaling session. It might be through a coaching session. It might be asking a whole ton of questions. Jess and I, who's on the live today, like we bounce back and forth on boxes. She's like, this is what's going on. What do you think? And I'm like, well, you know what? This is what I think. But then you've got to work out what you think. I was reading a post. Actually, it was really good. I'm in a mentoring group, a mastermind group thing with a mentor of mine, and one of her clients posted some old excerpts from a different group that we're a part of, and she was talking about her failures, and one of them was where she implemented a strategy that was which is very much in terms of a funnel and a program rollout that was essentially the same as one of her friends, right? Not with the same content, it was with her own content, but the same, essentially like the same business model and the same way of delivering. And it failed abysmally. I've done this where I've failed more times than I can count, you guys, right? But just because it works for me doesn't mean that it will work for you, right? You've got to find your way, and that's where the answers are within you, they like really come in. But then the other piece about this that I think is super important is that you've got to commit to the process. And the process is this unfurling and unraveling and peeling back the layers of you really rediscovering who you are. I was writing in my journal yesterday, as I do every day, but one of the things that I wrote in my journal yesterday is like, do you remember like when you were a kid? And you might have been playing, maybe it was dress ups, maybe it was like role playing, maybe you were pretending to be a teacher or a performer or like a prima ballerina. Do you remember what you wanted to be when you're a kid? My son wants to be a pro baseball player. And my other daughter, I think one of my other daughters wants to be a vet nurse, and another one of my daughters just kind of trips and flits between a whole range of different things. I think ranges from art to teaching to I don't have any idea, Mum. She's nearly 13. And I think back to when I was a kid. And I was like, I remember teaching my brother in our cubby house. We had a blackboard. Dad put a blackboard in, and I wished that I'd had one of those big, so showing my age. We used to have like the 1 meter rulers at school with those like little notches, and you'd hold the thing up and then you'd do the lines up like below the things, and so that you'd have the sentence blocks. So like really nice lines to practice writing. I remember teaching him handwriting in there. I remember standing on one of our fence posts and singing to the crops and entertaining and pretending that I was a TV host. But back then, I remember like everything felt like there was so much potential, right? It was like it was like limitless potentiality. There was like limitless possibilities. Teacher Jess, of course it was for you. So, we had these. We just somehow, like, I don't know about you, but I just somehow believed and trusted and knew that was possible and that it was an option, right? And then we kind of become adults and we have to become really serious and think about our future and fit ourselves into the conforming of going and getting a job or going to university and, you know, doing a degree in things that we probably decided we don't like and having a HECS debt to, you know, go along with it. But we're not having that conversation today. But I think what's really cool is that when you start sharing your opinions and your messages and you start to really come back to that trust, right? Like what you had as a kid pretending to be a teacher, you fully probably believed you were a teacher, like when you were a child. You probably fully believed that you were like you had that energy about your whole being, that you were a television presenter or a performer or a healer or a vet or a champion horse riding person or a prima ballerina or like whatever it was that you, or a fire truck driver or a police officer or like whatever it was for you. When you're sharing your message and you're sharing the things that are really important, hey Amanda, it's like I really want you to kind of like come back to that feeling of absolute trust and alignment, that like everything is absolutely limitless and there is so much potential, because that is one of the things that's really key to you being able to expand and evolve and reach the heights that it is that you really want. So you've just got to do you, right? You've got to do you. And there will be people who like it and there'll be people that won't, which is really actually, if we think about the polarization conversation, like with Libra, you know, if you are your brand, we can polarize people just by being ourselves. Everybody doesn't like us. That's great. Some people think I'm a bitch. Some people think I'm a snob. Some people think whatever, like it doesn't even matter. And a lot of that, I think, you know, is perhaps sometimes like a bit of my responsibility, because I get really, really anxious, right? I actually get really socially. I had this conversation with a friend of mine who, like, we play roller derby together. And we were talking about it in depth a couple of months ago. I have some quite severe social anxiety, right? To the point where I really resist going and meeting new people. It's different if it's in my work environment, right? I'd love to meet you guys. You know, I'd love to have an event and have you guys in the room any time, any day, you know, any day of the week, come hell or high water, like I'm there, bang. But as a normal human functioning in society, like in the public domain, let's say, where I'm not in work mode, I'm in personal mode, I find it really hard. And I think sometimes because like I'll kind of like, I sit back and I observe and I look and, you know, I don't think that people remember me and I don't think people remember my name. And sometimes I don't remember their names, and then I feel really awkward. And I'm like, oh God, like I was in the drop-off zone this morning and my son got out of the car. And I was like smiling at him, like in the rearview mirror as he went and got his bag out of the boot. And the lady behind me, I saw this flash of a smile, and I was already smiling. And then I realized later, I'm like, oh shit, that was Amanda. Like not this Amanda, but a different Amanda. I'm like, oh shit, she's probably gonna think I'm a bitch. I don't like why even whatever. But it usually takes me, you know, it just takes this thing. But I guess if I'm doing me and you're doing you, and you're right, Kristen, absolutely do you, then, you know, people are going to like you or not. People are going to understand you or they won't. People are going to resonate with you or they won't. And it's really the best sort of polarization that you could possibly embrace, because it's effortless, right? Like you just do you and people will come along for the ride or they won't. Like it doesn't even have to be strategic. Where the strategic piece comes in is where you're looking at your industry and you're starting to throw rocks, where you're starting to say, no, I actually don't agree with that. I think it's a bunch of bullshit. Or I really agree with this and I'm absolutely advocating for it. So we've got to take a stand. We've got to find our voice. And the best way that you can do that is just by practicing it, just by doing it, just by making it freaking happen. And the more you do that, the easier it becomes. And we've got to kind of like really start to let go of some of that small stuff that's really kind of inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. I had a message, it's funny, I had a message overnight from a lady, a client of mine actually, a new client of mine, who saw the live stream yesterday where I was talking about like the results of the burden of the client, not of the mentor. And then there were caveats to that statement, obviously. And she said, oh, thank you so much for sharing this story about these disgruntled customers. And she said it was really inspiring. And she went on to share a bit about her story. And to me, I was just like, she said, I really admire your no fucks given attitude, something like that. That might not be, I'm totally paraphrasing because I can't remember the exact words. I don't have it up. And it's like, well, you know, for me, I tend to give a lot of fucks, right? But I know that that's unresourceful. Do you know what I mean? It's like I give a fuck about the people who care, who matter, who are doing the work. I don't give a fuck about the people that don't like me. Like they can go jump. Like I don't care. I actually don't care. I don't have time in my world to be thinking about them. I'd rather be thinking about you guys. I'd rather be thinking about my clients. I'd rather be thinking and giving a whole ton of fucks to the people who matter. Yeah, like not to the people who don't. And I think it's also really interesting because like I said, you know, around anxiety and this social anxiety, which is, you know, kind of really interesting to me. You know, I don't know if you guys, like how long you've been following me or if you know about like some of my ancient history. I was in a DV relationship 4.5 years actually, going back in my very early 20s and like teens, early 20s. And I was like a little scared person. It was like a little scared kid. And I gave a whole lot of fucks about what anybody thought and what everybody thought. And I had my whole confidence completely eroded. And I mean, you guys can understand that, you know, with the physical, emotional and mental abuse that kind of happens in some of these kinds of relationships, which is what I went through. You know, it takes a lot of healing and a lot of getting over. And I think that for me, you know, there's also been a whole lot of self-protection and stuff that's gone on in my adult life to not allow myself to get in that position again, or to that's not what I mean. To be impacted by what other people think or by what other people say, right? And you know, it's a muscle that we build, guys. So I think the thing that hey Jody, oh, you were around in my previous life when that was all going on. You know, I think it's this thing where you're not gonna have it. Like if you're kind of brand new to you finding your voice, if you're sort of brand new to doing you and sharing the message that you need to share versus thinking about the ones and the zeros and the strategy and the things and the widgets and the stuff, then it's going to feel really unfamiliar. It's going to feel really, really weird. It's going to feel odd. I mean, Jody and I worked together like back in like when I worked for Westpac days. Like this is moons and moons ago, like 2001, right? And I was a different human then because I was very fragile. I was a very, very fragile human back then, and very young. So it's kind of, I mean, I'm still very young. You get the point. So I think it's this thing that I really want you to take away is that the more you share, the more confident and certain that you can be in who you are, and you start practicing, then the muscles build, and you'll find that you're polarizing without even kind of meaning to, and the people who are meant to be around you will stay around you. The people who are meant to just go will just kind of like fall out of your awareness and will just go away, and that is absolutely fine and great. Throw rocks at your industry, take a stand for something. But the bottom line of it all, guys, is that you've got to be you, and you've got to do you first and foremost every minute of every day, of every week, of every month, of every year. And that's what's going to make you successful. It's also the thing that's going to feed you the most or give you the most joy, and it's actually going to feed your soul and bring in the people who are your hot, cold clients. It'll help bring in the people who are supposed to be there, and so that you can do more of what you do, which is motivating, inspiring, healing, educating, transforming, and being the conduit of magic, which is really what it's about. So that's me for today. I'm going to love you and leave you and go out, brave the cold, and watch this softball game. So have an amazing day. Remember to share your voice, share your message, get out there, go help some people, have a whole shit ton of fun doing it. And remember that the world is so fucking ready for your brand of awesome, and we all love you, right? We're all here to cheer you on. You're not on your own, and you're amazing. And I just think the world needs to see that. So go have a great weekend. Have an amazing day, and I'll chat with you all really soon.